I can see the appeal with Hearts Beat Loud, but there are a few reasons why I really didn't like this. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really enjoy it. The only thing I really liked was the presence of Ted Danson. This was released in 2018. It's directed by Brett Haley. It's written by Haley and Marc Basch. And we have a cast including Nick Offerman, Kiersey Clemons, Toni Collette, of course Ted Danson. And the performances are really good. The narrative, it could have appealed to me. It's not that I absolutely have no interest in this, but it's very music heavy and I don't care about music. So that part was never going to appeal to me, but that doesn't mean I couldn't have enjoyed it. The narrative was actually well handled. Well, no, the concept was executed well enough, but the pacing was terrible, and I'll expand on that. And there were just too many things about this that didn't work well. It's about a father, Frank, and his daughter, Sam. Sam's getting ready to go off to college, and Frank wants her to actually start her music career with him, songwriting, performing. They're both very musically talented, and this gives us a lot of music in this. But I'd say there's actually too much music, by which I mean it's kind of almost constant. And I find that really uncomfortable. It's not that the music is bad, it's that it's always there. Of course, there are occasionally scenes when the music isn't there, but it's otherwise pretty constant. And I just found that really uncomfortable. I needed more of a break from it. And it would have made it more powerful if it was less frequent, because we would have had designated moments to enjoy the music. But because it's pretty constant, it's kind of irritating. But I do say that as somebody who doesn't really care for music. But I also say that as somebody who loves musicals where it's song after song after song. I have no problem with musicals where there's very little dialogue and most of the story is told through song. A lot of the music here doesn't necessarily have lyrics. And there were long stretches of time, one in particular, I think, later on in the film, where we have quite loud music over various scenes, and it's so slow and nothing happens and the story doesn't really move forward. And this happens quite frequently, where we just have stretches of time where nothing happens, the music is overbearing, and the narrative is very, very slow. And it does give a good look at the relationship between Frank and Sam, and of course the big question is, what will Sam ultimately decide to do? And I won't give that away, but I was satisfied with the development of the narrative itself. I think they did a good job with telling this story with regards to decisions that were made and the way things progressed, but around about that there is so much fluff that it's just tremendously slow. It's just over an hour and a half. And honestly, we could have told this story in an hour and 10, an hour and 20, and we would have lost absolutely nothing. I also found the characters, certainly Frank and Sam, to be not very likable. Sam, I didn't care for. I didn't dislike her, but I didn't care for her. Frank, there were times when I actually didn't like him. I wouldn't say I hated him, but there were times when he irritated me a little bit. So neither of them were particularly likable. The narrative addresses some important topics, but it's very, very slow. And the music is really overbearing to the point where it just started to irritate me. As I said, had it been less frequent, I probably would have enjoyed each performance, but in between the performances, the music is pretty constant and it's just really irritating and I couldn't enjoy it. Yes, if I were a bigger music fan, that might not have been the case, but I still feel like the performances themselves would have been more powerful if we had that respite from overbearing music in between each one. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement here. And it could have been a really good film. It could have been a really solid experience, but there are too many issues that make it a lot weaker than I would have liked. That being said, it has 6.9 out of 10. On IMDb across 12,000 reviews and ratings. And whenever I give a film a not glowing review, I do like to highlight that actually a lot of people do seem to enjoy it. So maybe it's just not for me, but I do stand by the points that I've made where there are significant areas where things could be improved upon. But if somebody says they love it, I don't think it's too much of a stretch. I can believe it. It's not completely for me, but there's still room for improvement. Ted Danson was in it. Not as much as I would have liked, but enough that I'm satisfied to have watched it as a Ted Danson fan. His character, absolutely fine. I wouldn't say I loved the character, but I didn't dislike him. I didn't dislike any of the characters apart from sometimes Sam and often Frank. And considering they're the protagonists, that's kind of an issue. The main issue, though, is the pacing and also, to an extent, the overbearing music. And that means that Hearts Beat Loud is not a good film. Some people seem to have loved it. I haven't read any reviews, so I don't know specifically what the highlights are for some people, but it seems to be quite a popular film. So if it sounds like it would appeal to you, I'd say check it out, come to your own conclusion. For me personally, though, there are just too many areas where things were a lot weaker than they should have been, and it definitely didn't work as well for me as I would have liked it to have done.